Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. And in this video, we got ourselves 10 books to invest in on a $50 budget. That's right, it's going to be an investment video today, and I put together a list of books that I feel like are really good pickups at this price range. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, do one of those things, I would appreciate it. But before we get into the video, of course, I got to do a little bit of a preface. In the invest videos, we always got to do a little bit of a preface. Of course, guys, the golden rule is buy what you like. Only pick up these books for this budget range if they're books that you actually want to own anyways. Additionally, these are books that I've just sort of identified as being good pickups at this price range. I mean, these aren't necessarily deep cuts. I'm sure you guys have heard about these books many times before, or other people have talked about them. But if anything, I am just affirming that these are good pickups in my opinion. With that said, let's get into the first pick here. And the first pick is going to be one that I'm sure you guys have seen many, many times before. And I'm sure that you guys probably already own this book. But the book we got to talk about is Wolverine #1 from 1988, written, of course, by Chris Claremont and drawn by John Buscema. Now, what is there to say about this book other than it is, one of the all-time great Copper Age books, the first ongoing series for the character known as Wolverine. And of course, everybody has nostalgia for this book. Everybody owns it in their collection. Everybody has this book. But, if you're somebody out there who doesn't have this book, I mean, I feel like at a budget range of $50, this is one of the best, Wolverine books you could probably pick up for yourself. Additionally, I got a couple other bonus books I want to throw out here. Wolverine #8, that classic Buscema cover with Mr. Fix-It and Patch on there. I think it's a great book to get for $50 as well. That one might be stretching our budget a little bit, but from time to time, you can find deals for that book at the $50 price point if you are somebody who doesn't want Wolverine #1. And then lastly, that Marvel Comics Presents #10, that would actually be the first appearance of the character known as Patch. And for that reason, I think that that one is a little nice spec bonus, not a $50 key, but definitely an interesting book to keep your eyes on because of the fact that, when we get Wolverine in the MCU, because of the fact that they've already established the city of Madripoor, I could definitely imagine them doing a storyline with the Patch version of the Wolverine character, and that would bring even more value to this particular series, to this particular book. All right, let's go on now to my second book to invest in on a $50 budget, and my second pick is actually going to be Marvel Spotlight #6 from 1980, and what is the significance of this? Well, this, of course, would be the first appearance of Star-Lord in traditional comic book form. Now, of course, Star-Lord made his original true first appearance in the Marvel Preview magazines. He would actually have a few of them, but it wouldn't be until 1980 where he would actually be brought into a Marvel comic book format. And one of the things that we have to, come to terms with is that there is definitely a bias in the collector market against those magazine format issues. They're a lot bigger. Often they're not in color. And I think that a lot of comic book collectors just don't like them. So for that reason, I view Marvel Spotlight #6 as being sort of the, unofficial first appearance of the character if you want to own it in comic book form. And I really do think that this is a very undervalued book. And for a budget of $50, I think you can get a really nice presenting grade of this thing that'll probably continue to go up in the future. One of the other things I like about this is Chris Pratt has been rumored to have signed on for more pictures even after we get the last James Gunn film. So I think Chris Pratt is going to continue to play this role for many, many, many years. And for that reason, I think that this is always going to be a desired key in the market for that reason. Now, I have also a bonus spec book for this one right here. Also another $50 key. We have Nova #8. That's the first appearance of the character known as Cosmo. Of course, Cosmo is the dog that has the astronaut outfit. But the rumors right now are that Cosmo is going to be a new character on the new Guardians of the Galaxy roster. So if you're someone who's a fan of Cosmo and you already have the Marvel Spotlight 6 book and you want another book to buy for $50, definitely go check out Nova #8 from 2008. All right, let's go on now to my third book here. My third book is actually going to be one that I continue to talk about on this channel. And for as long as you guys watch my channel, I'm going to continue to talk about this one. But this one right here is X Factor #6 from 1986. And what is the significance of this? Well, it's the first full appearance of the character known as Apocalypse. Now, in my opinion, I've said this before on the channel, I feel like this book is the cheapest blue chip first appearance of a Marvel character that you can get for yourself. In my opinion, I think Apocalypse is easily a top 10 villain. I mean, when we think about, status of villain characters and you ask like the random person on the street, hey, have you ever heard of Magneto? They'll probably say yes. Have you ever heard of Dr. Doom? They'll probably say yes. And then you get to that next tier. And I would say that, the majority of people who at least have some familiarity with comic books would have also heard of Apocalypse. And for that reason, I think that this is one of the great books to get your hands on for that $50 budget range. Also, I like the fact that, when we're looking at the landscape of the MCU, there's so much Egyptian connection to the character of Apocalypse. I mean, if we have Kang the Conqueror / Ramatut, we're going to do a storyline like that. We have Moon Knight now in the MCU. So So there's so many different touch points to bring in a character like Apocalypse when they also decide to bring in the X-Men team. Additionally, I got another bonus villain book right here. You know, it's hard to not bring up Uncanny X-Men number 221, first appearance of Mr. Sinister, another great X-Men villain. I feel like these are the two villains we're going to see the MCU tackle when we get X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And both of these books right now are selling at that $50 price point, and I think both of them would present beautifully in a slab. And speaking of slabs, let's take a moment to talk about the sponsor of this video, MySlabs.com. Now, for those who don't know, MySlabs.com is an online marketplace that specializes in graded collectibles. And one of the best things about this website is that you can see right there, 1% fees for sellers. So sellers get to make better deals with buyers, and buyers get to keep more money in their pockets, and everybody wins overall. I mean, I follow their Instagram all the time, myslabs_comics, and you can see how many great books they're constantly have being listed every single day. Amazing keys from Silver Age, Bronze Age, Copper Age. You can see all the great deals that are being sold every single week. One of the books right here I thought was really interesting is one that I was almost going to buy myself, but then someone beat me to the punch. It's this Tales to Astonish number 35, first appearance of Hank Pym in costume, a book that I really think is also undervalued in the market. This one right here at a 1.8 sold for $400, and you can see that the seller only had to pay $3.95 to use MySlabs to make that sale. Additionally, one of the cool things about MySlabs, in order to compete with the auction houses, they're offering very, very special high-end deals for books that are $60,000 or more, where they're not going to charge any fee to the seller. So if you have a big primo book like I do, like I'm thinking if I want to sell my Darkhawk number 1 for $60,000, MySlabs.com would be a great place to list it because I don't have to pay any fees. Definitely go check out MySlabs.com to see if it's a marketplace for you. And now let's continue on with our $50 investment books. All right, the next book I got on our list for comics to invest in on a $50 budget is this beautiful one right here, Spectacular Spider-Man number 101 from 1985. And what is the significance of this? Well, this would just be the iconic classic cover art by John Byrne that would feature all of that negative space in Spider-Man's black suit with the cityscape right there. I just think that this one is an incredible cover. And one of the interesting things in comic books is that you'll notice that classic covers by famous artists tend to hold their value. When I think about things like, Todd McFarlane covers or Jim Lee covers, collectors really like to hold those ones. And holding is a really important factor into keeping, the floor value for certain books. And I really do think that, in the future, when we get, a Tom Holland, future trilogy of movies where he's utilizing, the black suit, maybe we're going to have interactions with, Spider-Man and Venom. I really think that all the black suit keys are going to go up in value. And this one right here is just one of the all-time great covers there were in the Copper Age. And for that reason, I think Spectacular Spider-Man number 101 is a great book to pick up at $50. I mean, with all of the books on this list, you want to find the highest grade version you can find for yourself at that $50 price point. And if you can get a really nice copy of this one, a really nice presenting copy with like very few color breaks, you're definitely going to do well for yourself. All right, let's move on now to my fifth pick. And my fifth pick is going to be one that you guys are thinking, no way am I touching this with a 10-foot pole. Definitely The Mighty Have Fallen, but at this $50 price point, I gotta now mention Eternals number 1 from 1976. Of course, a book written and drawn by Jack Kirby that would feature the first appearance of the Eternals, of the Deviants, and more importantly, the first appearance of the character known as Icarus. Now, of course, this is a book that had an absolute moonshot in 2021 when we got, the launch of the Eternals film, and this book since then has crashed super, super hard. I mean, the Eternals film was definitely polarizing. Not a lot of people loved it. But when we think about the value of this book right now, I'm seeing tons of copies on eBay selling at that $50 price point. To me, this feels like a great opportunity to buy back into this key. I mean, we're definitely going to get Icarus back into the MCU at some point. I think Richard Madden has a lot of star potential, and all it would take would be a sort of revitalization of the character, maybe a new direction. I mean, think about how they rebranded Thor from Dark World into Ragnarok. I think that they could do the same with a character like Icarus, and when we get him back, if they're able to do a slight tweak to his character, this feels like it'll easily jump back up to that $100 price point, and who knows where it could go from there. So in my opinion, I think Eternals number 1, this is a great time to look for this book. All right, let's move on now to my next pick, and my next pick is actually going to be kind of an interesting one here. This is actually going to be a 2-4, but the one I'm going to talk about the most is Avengers number 38 from 1967. Now, minor spoilers out there in case you guys haven't heard it, but let's just say that there is a certain character on the cover cover of Avengers number 38, who has recently made his appearance in a certain film out there in the MCU. And one of the interesting things about this particular book right here is that this is actually the first time that Hercules meets the Avengers. It's actually the first time that Hercules comes to Earth. And that to me makes this book really, really attractive as a book to hold on to for the future. Of course, it seems like we're going to get a lot more Hercules in the MCU. They're definitely going to explore the storylines with this character. And I definitely could see them, bringing Hercules onto, the next iteration of the Avengers roster, or bringing him to Earth to interact with all the characters that live there. So I really like this book. Additionally, it's an early Avengers book. It's a great, kind of a Don Heck classic Hercules cover if you're into, sort of the vintage look with the red covers. But if you're not into this book, I also have another bonus book, which I have down here, Tales to Astonish number 79, which is the first meeting of Hercules and the Incredible Hulk, a great Marie 7 cover that also features their first fight. So I really think that, Hercules, as I would bucket umbrella this particular pick right here, have a lot of potential for the future due to the fact that we might see a lot more of him interacting with our favorite heroes in the MCU. All right, moving on to our next book. Speaking of the character of Hercules, I got Thor number 129 from 1966. And what is the significance of this? Well, this of course is the first appearance of the character known as Ares. Now, Ares in Greek mythology is the god of war, and he would actually be a character that would be important to the Thor and Hercules mythos in the comic books, and later would join, teams like the Dark Avengers. And I really like this book now more than ever because of what was insinuated with possible future storylines in the MCU. It definitely feels like, the wrath of Zeus is coming. Maybe we're going to see a battle between Thor and Hercules, but like things do in these movies, eventually those two join forces and they're going to have to face that third greater threat. And that would be really interesting to bring in a character like Ares at that point, where these two could team up to fight against them, and then Ares could go on to join, whatever, the Thunderbolts team or the Dark Avengers. So this one's a little more of a deep cut. Additionally, all that aside, it's a great early Silver Age book with Thor. People love this Jack Kirby run. Incredible cover art, and one that I think even outside of all this movie spec is still going to be a great book to own for the future. All right, let's move on now to my 7th pick, and my 7th pick is actually going to be a modern book here. We got Marvel Point 1, number 1 from 2011, and what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the first appearance of Sam Alexander Nova. Now, it's already been announced that Nova is going to be coming to the MCU. The writer of Moon Knight is currently working on a potential Disney Plus show. We don't yet know if it's going to be Richard Rider Nova or Sam Alexander, but Kevin Feige in the past has inferred that it's probably going to be both characters that we see in the MCU. And when I think about this book right here and, where Marvel is going, trying to bring in that next generation, that young generation, trying to diversify in terms of, representation, I think a character like Sam Alexander is prime to be brought into a team like the Champions or the Young Avengers or however they want to utilize him. And so this book right here feels like a really good opportunity, especially at this price point. I have right there on the slide, cheapest first appearance for next-gen heroes, low risk. And what I mean by that is when you compare Sam Alexander Nova's book to that of, Ms. Marvel Kamala Khan or Riri Williams or, other characters like the Young Avengers, this is actually the cheapest first appearance of that next gen of characters. And so at a budget of $50, you can definitely find a 9.8 candidate raw book out there in the market. And, I think that it has all the potential in the world to easily go up to that 3-figure range. I mean, worst case scenario, I think that this could be a book that follows the trajectory of Ms. Marvel Kamala Khan's book, where that book, shot up all the way to like $170 raw at one point, had a big correction. Now it's kind of sitting at the $100 price point. But, at the $50 price point, I feel like this is a really good entry point to get in on this book. And, when we get Nova at some point in the future, who knows what the ceiling could be. All right, let's move on now to my 9th pick. And my 9th pick is actually going to be Spider-Woman number 1 from 1978. And what is the significance of this? Well, this will be the first ongoing series for Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. Now, this is a book I've talked about on the channel many times. I am a big fan of this particular book, a big fan of this character. I think the cover art is amazing. I think the trade dress is fantastic. And I think Spider-Woman Jessica Drew has a huge potential to be a big female character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Sonyverse or whatever the case may be at some point in the future. One of the reasons I actually like this book is because I have right there on the slide huge potential for both Sony and Marvel because they actually co-own the rights to the character of Jessica Drew. I believe the way that it breaks down is that Sony owns the Spider-Woman rights, but Marvel can actually use the character of Jessica Drew. So for that reason, it feels like there's a lot of touch points for this book to have relevance to pop culture because they can utilize this character in both both manners. It's already been confirmed that Issa Rae is going to be playing Spider-Woman Jessica Drew in Into the Spider-Verse #2. There's also been talks that, maybe Emilia Clarke is going to be a Spider-Woman because of the Secret Invasion connection. There's been discussion that Olivia Wilde is going to direct a live-action Spider-Woman movie. There's speculation that the High Evolutionary is coming to the MCU. High Evolutionary created Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. So there's so many different touch points between Spider-Verse and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra that it's only a matter of time before Jessica Drew makes her way onto the silver screen. And when I think about the history of this character, how many solo titles she's had, how many solo runs she's had, there's definitely a fan base. And I really do think that this is a book at that $50 price point that could go up a lot more in the future. I compare it to books like Moon Knight #1, whatever the ceiling for Moon Knight #1 could be, I think Spider-Woman 1 could live up to that as well. All right, let's move on now to my last pick of books to invest in on a $50 budget. And I got a trio right here. Any one of these books will do, but I'm going to suggest either Silver Surfer 14, 15, or 16. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, these would be the classic cover issues in the original Silver Surfer run that came out in 1968. Of course, Silver Surfer #14. I think this is the main book on this slide that you would want to get. If you can find that book at a $50 price point, I would definitely pull the trigger. You're probably going to have to get like a VG copy or so. You might have to wait for that live auction. You might have to stretch your budget a little bit. But one of the things I think is so great about this book is not only is it an incredible cover, but it is the first time that Silver Surfer and Spider-Man actually meet. And I think that when we get that moment in the MCU, and there's going to be a moment where we have Spider-Man interacting with Silver Surfer, this will be a book that definitely explodes in value. Now, if you can't find that book at the $50 price point, I think you can move on to Silver Surfer #15, another great classic cover for Silver Surfer, him interacting with the Human Torch right there. A lot of the Silver Surfer keys are already expensive, so finding those ones on $50 budgets is going to be hard. People look to the next best thing, and I think this is one of the great covers that is still undervalued at this current time. And then the last one, of course, Silver Surfer #16, great fight between Silver Surfer and Mephisto. I think at some point in the future, we're going to get Mephisto. Maybe I'm being a little hopeful, but I think it's still a great cover to own. John Buscema, one of the great artists there is in all of comic book history. And I think all three of those covers, if you can find them at a $50 price point, are going to do very well in the future. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was me talking about my top 10 books to invest in on a $50 budget. Of course, at the end of the day, guys, buy what you like. There are no guarantees. Make sure you get the good deals and try to find these books at the highest grade you can find them at this budget range. Anyways, that's all I got. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you in the next video.